Welcome to Full Bay Shop Owner Roundtable. We've got an exciting show today with us. We'll introduce everybody here in a moment. But as you can see, first and foremost, we're in a new studio. We've moved our headquarters here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we set up this new studio. So those of you that are listening out there, if you've got any old tools or anything on the walls that you'd like to send our way, we'll be happy to pay for the shipping and put it up here in the studio for future shop owner roundtables and various other filmings that we'll be doing out of this studio here in Phoenix, Arizona. But welcome everybody. We've got a lot of people online. Please ask questions. We're monitoring the chat here. We'll try to provide you with real-time answers when we can and as we move along here in the filming. So welcome everybody here and abroad. We've got people I see from New Zealand, Belize, all across the U.S. and Canada. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. First off, appreciate everybody setting this up. Appreciate our guests for being here, which we'll introduce here in a moment. This Shop Owners Roundtable was established here from Full Bay with the idea of just helping all of you out there, shop owners and operators. I personally, Trent Broberg, new CEO. I'm a new face to the Shop Owner Roundtable. I've been in the fleet and logistics space for a few decades, whether it be technology, whether it be an operator, managing drivers, fleets, whether it be managing care and services across the network. So I've been in and around heavy duty equipment for a few decades, and I'm excited to be here. Been on board now for 4 months and learning every day from people that we've got here at the table and many of you that are online. Like I said, our primary focus here as a Shop Owners Roundtable is to help you all of the owners out there, all of the operators out there. How do we bring the community together? How do we drive best practices? I employ you all asking the questions here, and after the filming here, please get a hold of anybody at Full Bay. If you've got questions, you want to meet people, I promise you the network effect of the Full Bay ownership of over 5,000 shops are probably gone through a similar challenge that you have, and we can get you in touch with those people and those shop owners and operators that have had those challenges along the way. We hear this over and over again. When you go through technician school, when you go through school in general, nobody ever taught you how to run a business. We were talking before this, and we've got a lot of opinions that we'll share later on, but it's really an 80% mentality and go, you'll never get to 100%. How do we understand, how do we manage people? How do we manage culture? How do we drive success in our businesses? Your businesses will go through many stages throughout its growth cycle, whether it's the beginning, middle, end, however you're growing and what scale you're at, but it'll go through and we'll cover some of those today. But without further ado, make some introductions here. Peter to my right, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Peter Cooper with Ascend Consulting.
Thank you, Peter. Bill?
Bill Kerry Brothers Truck Repair, Detroit, Michigan.
And Nate Taylor, New England Fleet Services, based out of Connecticut.
Thank you all, and we'll get into maybe some of your origin stories, and we've got a familiar face here on the podcast in Peter, so thank you for joining us. Like we said, today's roundtable is about transition, how you grow your shop, how you build your shop, how you build your culture, how you manage people. It's all of the other back office stuff that you do as a shop owner and operator along the way. As we think about who the roundtable is meant for, it's all of you listening. It's all the shop owners, like I mentioned, and operators along the way. So I'd like to start here with just maybe the origin story. I'll start with Nate. Tell us who you are, how you got started in the business, and who New England Fleet Services is.
All right. So born and raised in Connecticut. I worked at a mom and pop shop for 13 years. And that was really the school of hard knocks. That was my first taste of working in a shop. And I started just pumping gas, changing oil, and just slowly developed the skills from there. My employer at the time is Dan Carcio, and he was really a mentor to me. And the goal became to buy his business when he was ready to retire. But he unfortunately got sick and passed away before we could really make anything happen. And at that point, my wife and I had been squirreling away money in the hopes to have a business. And we didn't have a house then. We didn't have kids then. So we figured that was the time to take the leap. So we, after doing some research, we liked the idea of getting into the commercial world, and we took the leap, and we hit 10 years in 2025, so that was a big year for us. And every year has been better than the previous year, and we're excited to see what's coming next.
Yeah, fantastic story. Tell me about buying a service truck before you have any customers.
Yeah, that was where the leap of faith comes in. So it's kind of like going to the question, do you hire somebody right before the work is there to support them, or do you get the work first, then you're in panic mode? So we decided we'd lay the groundwork. Our first tech was very important because I came from the automotive world, not the heavy duty. So I just really simplified it and figured, okay, what do we need for the bare bones of a business? We need a service truck, we need an employee. And I had confidence in my skills. I'm a pretty outgoing guy. I'm not really self-conscious. So I figured if anybody could do it, I could with the support of my wife and a good tech. So we really just took that leap of faith, hired the guy, got the truck. My landlord took a leap of faith also, great guy, and still is. I still lease from him. And we went out and we hit the pavement and just had to take a fearless approach. Holding back on the throttle wasn't going to happen, getting a business off the ground. We had to convince customers to come to us. They already had people working on their trucks, and we had to convince them why we were better. And the only way to do that was to have the systems in place, the equipment in place to start working on the stuff that day if they needed help.
Yeah, great. I mean, we'll get into that a little more. I'd love to hear about that leap that you took from being a technician over to an owner and what the challenges were in there. But love to hear your origin story, Bill.
Yeah, same thing. So Kerry Brothers was established in 1985. It's called Kerry Brothers. It was my dad and my uncle. They ran it up until 2015. I worked there as a kid, right? My dad was always on call. He had fleets that he took care of, and I went through all the programs of learning how to basically, be a low-level technician. And I was working there and going to school, and I started to get really ambitious in what I thought the business could do, right? Being a 19-year-old kid that, thinks they know everything. And, we should be doing this. We should be doing this. How can we grow? How can we grow? So at the time, I think there was like maybe 5 employees. And my dad came in and said, hey, you're fired. This place will always be here. Go to college, go get a job. So I left and worked for 8 years at one of our customers and really got an education in management and purchasing, sales, inventory, full blown, we call it Eastern Market University, where, all of the meat and produce companies operate in Detroit. So made a lot of really good relationships, and then decided I wanted to buy a business, and approached my cousin who had just bought his dad out and said, hey, let's do this together. We feel like we've got a really great product that we can kind of scale. So I came on, I think I was employee number 6 in 2015, and, jumped right back into full blown being a technician, worked into a master technician, built out all the back office stuff. We were on Mitchell at the time, and then brought QuickBooks in, from paper and pen, and started to get it up to modern technology and speed. And then we just slowly started to grow and scale, basically realizing how many times we had to say no to customers because we didn't have the capacity to do it. So we just kept growing and growing and growing. And in 2023, my cousin retired, and I bought his shares of the business. And then we closed 23 with about 23 employees. And today we just hit 100 employees. So we're operating 5 locations now, and hoping to get to, 8, 9, 10 by the end of this year. So been really, really fortunate in seller finance deals, and, really working with business owners to kind of transition to the next stage of their career and life cycle, and being partners with us. So it's been amazing. I've got a great team around me, and wake up and have fun every day. So
yeah, it's a great story, and we'll get into a little more on that expansion, the opportunities and the complexities of going out and acquiring businesses with a different culture, with a different mindset and a different leadership strategy. That's also as something to really click into. Peter, tell us about yourself and the consulting you do today and your history, right?
So my background, I guess I haven't really talked about that much on this. So I actually started my own shop in 2014 out of a need to work on really weird vehicles. So I specialized in working on buses and RVs. And I know everybody's probably cringing right now because they hate working on it. But hey, I figured out as a little guy, I can make a living just picking up scraps. And so and I've always been a technician. And so, one morning I had this epiphany that why am I broke? And I started doing a lot of research and a lot of education and realized that it was because I was never taught how to run a business. I was just a really good mechanic. And that doesn't work when you want to try to fix your business. So that kind of morphed into what I do now, which is consulting, where I work with shops and try to increase efficiency and profitability.
Yeah, fantastic. And Peter's been a great partner of Full Bay for many years now and a familiar face on the show, as I mentioned. And let me just jump back into a couple questions for we've got a couple questions coming in here, but questions for the folks on the board here. When you think about, Peter just mentioned you're great machines as technicians, right? You're great at what you're doing. You understand how to do the discipline. You've been taught. You became a master technician, right? You've done it yourself. You're making a transition from the automotive to the heavy duty space. Talk me through the big challenges and transitioning that you've faced. Nate, we'll start with you. One of the big challenges that you faced when you transitioned from a technician or mechanic over into owning your own business. What are some of those things that you didn't realize you were going to have to focus on, and how did you accomplish, the growth that you've seen? So Nate.
So that's like a multi-layered question. So here's a multi-layered answer. Fixing things, if you fix a vehicle, it does you no good unless you can get paid for fixing that vehicle. Charging somebody for a repair that didn't quite happen doesn't work either. That's a good way to lose a reputation really quickly. From watching Dan, the guy I'd worked with, and kind of being under his, unofficial tutelage, I saw that those two things can really work together, where you can fix something with integrity and it's okay to charge a fair price for that. And in a healthy business, that's a very symbiotic relationship. So that wasn't a big learning curve because the shop that I'd come from was small enough where I could see the process from beginning to end. I would fix a car, I would see the customer come in, I would see them pay the shop. Then at the end of the week, I would get a paycheck. And that life cycle from repair to money in my pocket was always fascinating to me, and I got to see it, the process from beginning to end. So owning the shop, it wasn't a foreign, when we had started New England Fleet Services, that really wasn't a foreign concept, just because I had watched this guy for so many years and I asked questions. I'm a perpetual student. So when I was working under somebody, it was just a lot of questions. I still had mentors when I opened up New England Fleet Services. Hey, how do I handle this situation? What's the best way to invoice this person? So it was really networking, asking people that I trust, and necessity. I needed to eat. My employee needed to eat, which means we had to charge. And we just had to make sure that the quality of work matched the price that we were charging.
Yeah, it's a value equation, right?
Yes.
I mean, it'll make, necessity will make you do some interesting things. But I think you said something really important there, which is just asking, just getting out there, just being the extrovert. For those of you that are introverted out there, at times you've got to just ask. You've got to, if you need to ask for help, that's one thing. If you need to ask how people have done things, if you need to, Peter, I'd love to hear your take on that because I know that there's some opinions here.
Well, I think that's a really good point. And that's that don't be afraid to reach out to even your competition. I mean, I think a lot of people in this space thinks that everybody thinks them as a threat, especially when you're first starting out. And honestly, there's so much work out there and there's so many different shops that specialize in different things that I would not be afraid to ask someone how they did it. And it doesn't even have to be in this industry. It could be a carpenter or a plumber or an HVAC guy, anybody that's in any kind of business. And that's why I always recommend too that people join the Chamber of Commerce, because you're literally in the room with all the business owners and it's basically free. And I really think that's a great point, is that we need to ask more questions as owners.
Yeah, we've seen this a lot throughout the growth at Full Bay. And recently we just launched our own community with that in mind. The goal here is to create a community of operators, shop owners, aspirational shop owners, people that are really growing their businesses. And as Peter mentioned, there's enough business out there to handle. And our goal, what we're trying to do is drive the community, drive the network, and help connect the dots at times, which is more helpful than at times than providing world-class software. So, Bill, tell me about the leap when you took, you got fired, right, by your dad. Unfortunately, I'm sure that's a fun one around the holidays. You went to school, you got an education in hard knocks through growth in business. Then you came back and talk to me about that transition. You became a master technician, and now you're running a shop that's grown 4X in 2 years.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about.
Yeah. So for us, it was, I was the do it all guy, right? Every day, right? So I was dealing with all of the customers and diagnosing all of the trucks and, helping order the parts. And we didn't have process, right? And because it was just all in my head, and it was that intrinsical knowledge, right? And there was no such thing as a vacation for me as we started to grow into 20 employees, So I realized that, what got me here isn't going to get me there. And I had an ambition of, man, if something was to happen to me, right, this business couldn't function. And I got some really great advice from a peer of mine. And, he just said, hey, what would this look like if you were disabled or couldn't work, right? So I had to put the pedal to the metal to really get this thing to grow and remove myself from the operation. But in order to bring on all those people, you really had to scale revenue to support that payroll, right? So, and then after that, it came to building processes and, and how we're doing things all the way down. But it takes time, right? It's a big investment. You mentioned the 80% rule, right? So, as a business owner and a technician, you see people doing things and you're like, well, that's not how I would do it. No, I want it done this way, right? And I'm still very guilty of that. But it's a discipline that you have to learn to be able to really hand stuff off to people and delegate and elevate and, continue to grow the people around you. It's really easy to jump in and just do it and then, violate your chain of command, but you're robbing people of the opportunity to be successful. So it's a hard thing to learn, and it was the key for our success.
Yeah, throughout the growth, I'm sure, of what you've experienced, your ability to let go of things at times becomes one of the most challenging. As an entrepreneur, as a business leader, as a business owner, it is a challenge to let go and allow someone else to take control of ultimately your financial position and your ability to coach and lead and mentor and train becomes more important than ever when you have one employee, when you have two employees, and as you grow. That is a huge takeaway here. I know I've learned that. I'm sure we've all learned that along the way. When you're an entrepreneur, you wear all the hats. When you're small, you wear a lot of hats. As you grow to the size you are, and as your aspirations grow, you have to be more focused throughout the growth trajectory there. Peter, what have you seen in some of these shops? Yeah.
Well, and that's something I want to hit on with Bill, because Bill and I have known each other for a while now. And that's that with everyone I work with, I have them do an exercise. And what is the exercise? And this is very sombering and very real, but what would happen to your business if you died tomorrow? And the reason why I bring it up is because if the business cannot run without you, you do not have a business, you have a job. And the other thing to think about is if something happens to you, what happens to your family? And what happens to your employees? What are you leaving? What mess are you leaving for them to clean up? And really, it's an eye-opening experience. It's a good experiment, because if the answer is the business can't run without me, that's that's kind of your warning sign that you've got to change something. And so it's really good to hear that you say that, because that's one of the exercises we work through a lot with clients.
Yeah, that is some sobering, conversations that you might have, but what it does is it's twofold. It gets you in the right headspace, and it also can help empower those around you. Fantastic. I had an old mentor that said, we don't manage people, we manage systems, we lead people. like it's that kind of mentality that is critical for growth. I want to talk about, the HR, the soft skills of ownership and operating in the business. HR, it's the KPIs that run the business. It's hiring technicians, one of the most challenging things you'll do, hiring good technicians, retaining great talent. Peter, how are you working with some of these shops to work through kind of that mindset, to think about what kind of technicians, to kind of think about what that means for the business and how important it is to spend the time to find the right talent within the business?
Well, what I try to get them to understand is stop hiring out of desperation. I mean, so many shops out there are so focused on fixing trucks that all of a sudden something happens out of left field. They lose an employee. And then let's face it, that's just the natural part of life. You're going to gain employees. You're going to lose employees. There's nothing wrong with them, or not always something wrong with you. It's just natural. And when that happens, so many people get blindsided. They get in this panic. Oh my God, we need another tech. So they go out and hire the first guy who has the hard skills to fix a truck. And they don't think about, what is that doing to your culture? What is that doing to your community internally? And so it's really something that I think a lot of owners need to focus on, is you need to hire for attitude and aptitude and really focus on that more, especially from a long-term standpoint. I mean, if you hire a person that's a lube tech and you work with them over a couple of years and you turn them into a high-level tech, those people are very loyal. They don't jump ship real easily. And you really do start to build a community internally. And I'm definitely not trying to say don't hire when you need people, but you've never got to stop hiring. Like, that has to be 20, 30% of your focus as an owner until you have an HR team, is hire, and work the whole system. Don't just put an ad on Indeed. Like, talk to the community, talk to your people, talk to your own people. The best mechanics I've ever hired were friends of a friend's or somebody's cousin or something like that. Like, you have a lot of resources internally. Don't be afraid to ask your own people for help.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the whole network effect. Ask them for people like them, right? People typically hang out with people that are like them. So if you've got great employees, go to that base and look for those individuals. Transitioning that, Nate, I know you genuinely like people. And talk to me about people first. Talk to me about that philosophy around how you think about the business, how you think about the soft skills, but how you think about your employees in general.
Well, it's one reason I wanted to get into business for myself, because I do like people. And I always want to do something where I could just deal with people and be myself and form those relationships. So from customers down to my employees, like, I genuinely care. I love all these people within the context of business. And I think if I were to sum it up, it comes down to trust. If you have an employee that trusts that you're looking out for them, or a customer that trusts that you're looking out for them, I found the performance increases based on the amount that they believe that you're looking out for their interests. I mean, as business owners, we depend on our employees, but as employees, we depend on our employers. That's another really symbiotic relationship. And I make such an effort just to let the people in my team, in my sphere, know that I care about them. Just as an example, one way I do that is, my guys tease me, tell me I have a gift of gab. Because I'll come in the morning and I just want to spend a few minutes, nothing long, 5-10 minutes, just ask them, hey, how's the family? How's your weekend? You got plans coming up? Any vacations coming up? And just to ask about their life. Because I care and we're in it together. And as much as New England Fleet is supporting their family, they're also supporting my family. And I never take my eye off that ball. I think that teaches humility to the business owner. And it really does keep us very focused on treating our employees and our customers with care, because we actually care.
Yeah. One thing, building on that, to communicate with all employees is the order of health, family, shop.
Yeah.
Right? Health, family, business. We're all in business to provide for our families. But if you think about it in those contexts, how's your health, how's your family, and how's the shop doing? That's a helpful trick that we can look at. Bill, talk to me. You've scaled significantly over the past couple of years. Talk to me a little bit about that, the culture, the technician challenges you've run into, because we've got a people first. You're a very people first individual as well. Same mindset, but you've had to actually now take a couple different cultures and pull them together. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, EOS was a tool that, we deployed right at the end of 23. And, to hammer down our core values and bring the core people of the business into that decision-making process of what our core values really were and what did we stand for, right? What have we stood for 40 years? So, EOS was a great tool for that. And we use our core values as the carrot and the stick, right? Like, we want to commend everybody who's executing inside of those core values. And the most important one for us is family. In to the point of recruiting of people, right? I've got 4 brothers that work for me, a set of twins and then their brothers, right? And they kind of all came in one at a time, and they didn't have any experience in the truck world. And, we've been really, really good at building out a training platform. It's not extremely organized yet, but we're making strides in that and taking a guy that could be extremely green that doesn't know which end of the screwdriver to hold. And, a year later, he has the opportunity to make $100,000 a year, right? So it's really, really been that drives our culture. So, our culture is everything. And in the transitions of merging cultures, we've found in this last acquisition that there was this great business that was operating, and it was smaller. It was 7-8 employees, and then we tried to take the best parts of their culture and then bring the best parts of ours, right? And really showing how we care and where we care, right? And those are our customers, right? Our internal customers drive our external customers, and we've found that really, really caring and having support, whether it be a guy needs a loan or an advance to get moving or somebody needs help moving, right? Hey, go grab a truck and, we've got people pitching in to come help you paint your living room and, move your furniture. So we do a lot of events on the culture side. We have games that the entire company plays. The first of the month, the winner of the game gets to pick where we order lunch from. We buy the entire company lunch. We do team building in the summer at my house in my backyard. So you can imagine what that looks like. Like our company Christmas party this year, we did all families. So bring your kids. We had, Santa, a face painter. We gave away a car, big screen TVs, vacations, electric scooters, right? And really getting people invested in what our mission is. And yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I want to hit on, and that's core values, because you and I, we've talked a lot about that and worked through it. And I think there's a lot of talk out there about core values, but there's very little talk about what are core values and why do they matter. And one thing I like to add in is that when you establish core values in your business, they're not just a poster on the wall. What they are is a set of rules and guidelines for your employees, because you will never be able to document every policy and procedure for everything that could ever happen in the world. And you talk about trust. Trust is a two-way street. You have to trust your employees, not just them trusting you. And one of the ways that you show trust is if you can give them a set of core values and say, as long as you make a decision that's within these guidelines, we are always going to back you up. Even if it turns out badly, that's on me. Mm-hmm. That's my fault it turned out bad. That's not on you. And you find out that when you get out of your own people's way and actually let them do their job and make decisions, they're pretty amazing at what they do. And a lot of times owners have to look at a situation and realize that you may be the one holding the company back ultimately from achieving its goals, not your people.
I had I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. My service manager checked me, a year or two ago. He pulled me to the side, and I just got back from a small vacation. He goes, don't take this wrong way. He goes, when you run the shop, it's fine. He goes, when I run the shop, it's fine. But when I run the shop and you try to make decisions for me, he's like, it's a mess. He's like, cut it out. I need room to breathe. And he was 100% right. And that was a learning experience for me where I didn't realize I was stepping on his toes and kind of being my own worst enemy in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of commentary in the chats about that transition from tech to owner, kind of letting go, rolling back into the technician role when things are behind, and how bad the consequences can be of that, because now you're undermining your teams, you're undermining your other leaders, and how that is. So there's a lot of chatter going on here in the chat on that.
There's a good point on that, and I talked about this at Diesel Connect, one of my speeches, and that's that owners have to understand that when you jump in and meddle, and that's exactly what it is. I call it meddling. You're not helping, you're meddling. That you're actually stealing your employees' win. And when you steal the win enough, they get demoralized and they're not motivated anymore. And it's actually a neurochemical response. You're actually stealing the dopamine drip because you want the victory, even though you may not realize that. And so owners really need to step back and watch themselves, what they do, and reflect on it and realize that, yeah, you may have a technician that's struggling and he's been struggling for 20 minutes trying to figure out why the truck doesn't start. You can't just walk by and say, oh, it's that right there. You need to tighten the ground wire. Like, you can't do that. As hard as it is to do, because you just stole that guy's win. And if you do that enough, they don't really get the reward that they need to get from winning.
Yeah, you turn into Rescue Rob.
Yeah. And it's
Rescue Rob. Yeah.
New superhero.
Mm-hmm. We need a character on that. I think that's good parenting advice as well, when you think about your kids.
I think honestly, that's probably one of the biggest things I learned as a business owner is almost all the lessons you learn from being a parent are the exact same lessons you need to know as being an owner. Because that's essentially what you're doing. If you're doing it right, you're growing people the same way you grow children. I mean, they're all humans. Just your kids are just little humans.
Mm. One thing, Bill, maybe you've grown a lot. You're hiring new people. How do you maintain approachability when you think about that? You know, transitioning, you don't want to meddle. You don't want to be Rescue Rob, but at the same time, you want to be approachable for opportunities, challenges, help. People asking for help. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, so that's been a real struggle for me, getting to the point where we're at now, and I start to see notifications of who we hired, right? I'm like, I've never even met this person before, right? So, and now as the geography starts to expand, right, there's people at different branches, and we have, you know, a very, very regular meeting cadence in every single department, right? Daily huddles every morning. Let's talk about, you know, issues and get them out, and, you know, clear policy of if you don't like the answer that your supervisor gave you, go a step up, right? And my door's always open, right? So I'm in HQ in Detroit every day, and, you know, it's anybody can walk in and have a seat and you know, pick my brain or bring something up, or and we found that we really want to cultivate ideas, right? So really empowering everybody in the company to help make the company better, and following it through with KPIs, right? And making the KPIs that aren't hitting the focus of what is the issue to why we aren't achieving you know, success in this.
Yeah, it's a big learning moment for sure for a lot of people, including all of you and the employees you have. Ask them to come, ask them how their day is, right? It's that health, family, shop kind of mentality, but ask them what's going on in the day-to-day. How can you be helpful? What do you see? What am I missing? Because one of the things as an owner or a leader is you won't have all the answers, but your technicians, your employees will think you have all the answers, but you just won't. So it's really about that two-way conversation. Talk to me about, you know, the flexibility, or think about, Nate, you know, you don't have any challenges filling your techs. You don't lose techs. Talk to me about the flexibility you provide to them and how that helps in managing, you know, the retention of great people.
Yeah, being in commercial work, we don't have a lot of people who come to the shop and they're sitting there for their appointment waiting for it to be done. You know, there are jobs that need to be fixed. We give the customers, you know, an idea of when it's going to be done, and then we handle it. So I tell my techs, you know, I can work around whatever you have going on in your personal life. If you've got to bring your kids to school, then show up later on those days. As long as we know what we're looking at, we can plan around everything. We don't run a second or third shift, but, you know, I've told my techs, if days aren't good for you, then I'd be open to a second or third shift. You know, if the vehicle's here, we got the parts here, whatever it takes to get the job done and meet their needs on their personal level or in their personal life. So I think being flexible as a business owner is, pardon the pun, but it's a huge flex. Just to be able to kind of roll with the punches a little bit. As long as the communication is concise, like you can't have the inmates running the asylum, so to speak. There is a job to get done. There are guidelines that need to be followed. But if you're hiring like high quality techs, decent people who are good at the job, you're not twisting their arm to follow simple guidelines because, they're good at their job. They're good techs. They want to succeed. So if they know you care and they're a decent human being and they're good at their job, they'll go the extra step to work within your flexibility so it works for everybody.
Yeah.
And Peter, I know you've talked about this previously, overtime. What's your stance on overtime, Nate?
All right. I'm not quite as hard on overtime as Peter is, but I do cap it at 4 hours of tech if they want to make a few extra bucks. If we got some big projects going on. So I cap it at 4 hours of tech.
Bill, how are you thinking?
Yeah, we're unlimited overtime. So to compound on Nate, really being flexible on schedules has enabled us to expand our hours, right? Because people are divorced and they have kids and they have to get to things. So it enabled us to open up at 4 a.m. and close at midnight because we were working around people's schedules, right? And that goes a long way to be able to really support people's family life and realize that, they're working to support their family and they're not, living to work, right? So, yeah, but we're unlimited overtime. So we've got guys that, are pulling 75, 80 hours because they want to make money and they're hungry, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you only have so much building space. Yeah.
Yeah. Peter, thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are pretty clear on overtime. Overtime is a necessary evil in this industry. The problem comes in with overtime is when you plan overtime. In other words, you schedule someone to be there 70 hours a week. I'm not saying it's because you had a snowstorm and the whole world came to an end and guys are working overtime. That's not what I'm talking about. Because the one, you got to look at it this way. Overtime is like a part. If a radiator costs 50% more tomorrow, we would all agree we'd have to charge the customer more for it. But when our cost of labor increases by 50% paying overtime, we don't charge more for it. Unless you do. And then that solves a lot of problems. But overtime is it's a double-edged sword. It really, when I look at businesses from a financial standpoint, it's one of my go-to things because we can prove, well, I'll put it this way. I've yet to have a business owner show me on pen to paper that scheduling overtime is profitable. And as long as we're here to make money, we have to remember that we have, as business owners, I think there's a lot of talk about culture today. But one of the things that we aren't really honest to ourselves about is that we have a commitment to our business to be profitable. That your number one commitment in a business is the business itself. You have to treat the business almost like its own person. And when we lose sight of that, we tend to make decisions with a little bit more emotion than I think we should sometimes, instead of really being true with something or someone and looking at it completely objectively and saying, this is not good for the business. And I'm not saying don't be a good boss and don't care about people, but you have to care about the business as a person too.
Yeah, and there's short-term wins, long-term wins and challenges that come out of that because to your point, you've only got so much utility to run with. You've only got so much base space. You've only got so much, so you've kind of got to work that in a financial model for long-term success. I had a couple questions that came through on your huddle. How long is the huddle? What are the top things that happen in the huddle discussed? This is a question from Robert here online. He said, we're a small company and we've struggled to find value every day in the huddle for our small shop. So
yeah, so a great thing about, that we've acquired a few businesses is to really get what they're doing as best practices and incorporate it into everything. So, we use this software called Truck Genius that records all of our metrics and our service managers. So in each building, there's, different departments, trailer, light duty, heavy duty, reefer. So every single morning, those service managers have, it could be a 5-minute huddle. It could be a 10-minute huddle. So I'm sorry, let me back up. So then the service advisors and service writers meet with the service managers to say, hey, here's what we have today. Here's what is important. Here's the information I got in. I need to know when this truck's done, blah, blah, blah. Then those service managers go 5 minutes with all their technicians. Every single technician, every single morning, runs through what their utilization and efficiency was from the day prior. and we set a standard at 95% utilized. And if we have enough work that, we're not out of things to do, then there's no reason we're not achieving 95% utilization. So, that's the number one thing we go through. And then it's issues of, hey, all right, you're on this, how long before you're done? And that's it. It's just quick, right? Here's what's on the roadmap. Here's what we need to accomplish today. And are we missing a tool? Did a computer get broken? What is it that we need to do? Do we need to redeploy, resources to somebody? The high-low's blocked in. We need to use it. I'm stuck, right? So it's just really, really quick. But every single department in our entire company has a morning huddle that just quickly outlines what we're trying to win today, right? Where did we leave off yesterday?
What's the scoreboard look like?
Yep.
We gain alignment, and you go off and be great.
Yeah.
That's the point. And that's true in every business I've ever been a part of. It's that daily huddle to just realign, understand if we're winning or losing in 3 seconds or less on a scoreboard, and move forward. Mm-hmm.
So one thing I can add to that, if you want a real world structure of how you run a meeting, we try to keep them to less than 10 minutes on Mondays because that's the start of the week, and then 5 minutes the rest of the week. And the way you look at it is you need to understand that is how you align people. And what does that look like? So think about if you put your entire team in a rowboat and asked them to start rowing, but didn't give them a sense of direction, you would just go in a circle. And one of the most important things in business is getting everybody rowing in the same direction. It really doesn't even matter what direction you're rowing in. If you're all in the same direction, you'll eventually get somewhere. And that's what the morning meeting is. And a lot of people that struggle to find value in it is because they don't do a really good job of having a structure of what it means, but also they let it get off the rails. So if you keep it to just a couple minutes, you say to the facts, and then also give your people time to make a comment and ask questions. What are you struggling with today? The lube tech. Well, I'm really struggling with this. Okay. Make it everybody's responsibility to help everybody else. Think about like a lead tech in your shop. A lot of shops have lead techs, but they really look at the lead tech wrong. They look at the lead tech as the person that solves the problems. And really you need to look at a lead tech in a shop as that person is there to make everyone else better. And you should judge their performance based on that metric as well.
Yeah, you want them interacting.
Yes.
The lead in every department, not just your lead tech, the highest performers, you want them interacting with everybody else around them because that's going to pull everybody else around them up.
Well, you have to give them time
general term.
too. I mean, we look at lead techs and I tell people 75% is 100%. If you've got a lead tech that's billing 98%, 95% efficiency, that guy is not spending time doing what he should be, which is making everyone else better. He's just a really good tech. And if he's that good of a tech, you should probably leave him alone, let him go be a tech.
Speaking on that, let's shift over to maybe a growth mindset. We've all gone through challenges in growth and what that looks like. Bill, where does growth actually come from in your shops?
So it's our number one core value, right? Growing as a professional in your professional life, growing in your personal life. We should be, as a company, empowering you to grow. So we do a lot of things around that, right? So we just this year started doing a weekly leadership meeting open to the entire company. So it's a Teams call at 6:30 a.m. It's 52 weeks. Every fourth week we do a book review. So there's a book assigned, and then we go through that, and then everybody gets a turn at growing as a leader, conducting an outline, right? So getting all of our people to grow as leaders. And then it's growth with a career path and a clear step for technicians to grow from, we have 6 tiers. So from tier 6 to tier 1, what is the pay scale in there? What are the things that you need to be able to do to move to the next tier so you know exactly what the playing field is? And we do a lot of just personal development for everybody to continue to get them to grow. And most of it's personal, right? We really want people to grow on a personal level so that they're happier at home and they're more clearly focused on where it is we're trying to go. So we're very, very transparent in what our projections are, what our roadmap is, what we're trying to accomplish as a group. And it gets everybody, to your point, rowing in the same direction, right?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Nate, where does your growth come from in your stage of the company today?
The growth comes from me, to be honest with you. I mean, at this point, I'm more of Because my service manager does a great job. We raised up one of our techs to be a working foreman, and then we've got 4 techs underneath him. And so the core business, the day-to-day runs fine. So I'm more in a sales role in the business. We don't spend a lot of money on marketing, any money really. I am the sales guy, and we recently wanted to expand into more trailer work. So we got a brick and mortar that can fit trailers. And so I'm the one kind of driving that. I'm the one reaching out to the big customers, trying to get these national accounts to give us a shot. And so far, so good. But the growth comes from me and my sales chops. I would love to get to the point kind of where you're at, where the business is big enough where you can delegate that and you probably have some kind of sales team or,
Yeah, same way. I was the sales guy for the last 10 years. We just put our first salesman in 6 months ago. So
how many people did you have in the business before you took that step?
We would have been like 70-ish employees before we started to first bring a sales guy in. His entire mission is to kind of go out, maintain our current business, and go find new customers that fit what our profile is.
Okay. Could you have done earlier if you wanted to, you think? Or was that
we
kind
didn't
of
have the
good
capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, we added more building space, and we didn't have the capacity to take more work.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Peter, thoughts on that? When you think about, where the growth actually comes from, we had a human element here. We're growing from within. Obviously, we've got a growth story here and an entrepreneurial mindset as you're out there beating the pavement with your gift of gab, I'm sure, with customers.
I think my opinion on that is that you all have to ask yourself a question that if you want to grow, what do you want to grow up to be? And I work with that with a lot of different shop owners is I literally will ask them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they really don't know. And it's like, this is why as an owner, you have to give yourself time to think. Because otherwise you're just so busy doing that you're not building a plan. And you have to think about a business like building a house. You wouldn't just show up some lumber and start nailing some boards together and hope you have a livable structure. We all know that would be crazy. But how do we build a business? We're really good at something, so we just go out and do it. And then we get busy, so we do more of it. And there's no plan. And it's okay to not want to be 100 employees and all of that. That's not for everybody. And that's okay. But you really have to ask yourself, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's a good introspective way to look at things. Some people have lifestyle businesses and you're fine and you don't want to grow. But there are other people like those joining us today that have the growth mindset and they want to grow the business. Speaking of growing the business, you run into challenges every day. You run into times where you've got these gray area mistakes, where you've got to make rapport with a customer, maybe a national account, and you got to do things right by your customers and your employees. Talk to me about an example, Nate, where you've had some challenges and how you responded to that with a customer.
Yeah, not too long ago, we had a guy call us. It wasn't a regular customer of ours, and he wanted to know if he could bring his truck in just to regen it, clear the light, so he could get back to where he was driving to Atlanta. So he comes in, we scan it. The thing was stuck in D-rate. It needed DPFs. So we did the work. We took the DPF out. We sent it out to be cleaned. We reinstalled it. The guy paid for the job, hit the road. I got a call like later on that evening. The guy had driven like 300 miles and the truck derated again. Guy's like, I had to get it towed to a dealership. Now I'm down and putting my driver up for 3 days, $300 a day. You guys were just in here. The guy sent me pictures of the exhaust and there was a clamp missing. I don't know if the clamp blew off. I don't know if my tech forgot to tighten it. But that was one of those situations where I could say, you just drove a few hundred miles. I don't know what happened, so at least you're at a dealership. I guess I could have reimbursed him all the money. That wouldn't be fair to me. So my first question to him was, what would be fair to you? What do you think would be fair situation here? And the guy goes, let me think about it. Guy called me back a little while later and goes, look, if I can just get some help with the hotel stay of my tech, that would go a long way to help me out. So that's what we did. We reimbursed the guy $1,000, figured 3 nights in the hotel. He paid for whatever the repair and the tow bill was. And it's like the definition of compromise. Nobody feels like they won 100%, but nobody feels like they lost 100% either. And he was an out-of-towner. I probably won't see him again just because he's not in the area very much, but we left on very good terms. And I'm confident saying that guy's not going to be able to say anything bad about New England Fleet Services because everybody makes mistakes, but it's how you own up to the mistake that makes a difference. Not everybody needs to take the whole hit. So we worked together. That's that human element, work together. I said to him, what's fair to you here? And we were able to come to a compromise, but those are the worst. When you do a big job and then you get a phone call like an hour or two later or the next day, it's never a good thing. But it's unavoidable. And the more work you do, the bigger jobs you do, these problems happen. And, everybody listening, everybody here probably has, dozens of stories, where somebody messes up and what do you do? And there's not always a clear right and wrong. You just try to do the best on a human level, I think.
Sometimes they become nightmares. Sometimes they become long-term reputation gains.
Yeah.
What's really interesting there is how you approached it and said, what's fair? Right? How do you think about that? Peter, maybe some comments?
Well, I actually have a really good lesson about that. So I used to own a limo company. And you deal with, if you think having to deal with a trucker that broke down after you worked on it's bad, deal with a bride that something went wrong on her wedding day. And what I learned the hard way is two things. Listen and ask questions. Because 90% of the time when someone calls to complain, they just want to feel heard, number one. And number two, if you, like Nate said, if you ask them what they want, I guarantee you the majority of the times they are willing to settle for less than you're willing to offer. So do yourself a favor, just as owners, just shut up, stop trying to defend what happened, especially if it's a bad Google review. Don't ever do that. Just be quiet, listen to the customer, and just ask, what do you need to do to make it right with them?
What's fair? Bill?
Yeah, I mean, for us, right, like loyalty is one of our core values, right? And we command loyalty from our customers the same way we command loyalty from our team members, right, and families. And no is a great way of really retaining and understanding who those customers are that you want, right? So I'd mentioned the Truck Genius software, and it's just essentially a dashboard that we use to control, and we can monitor every single customer's GPM, parts labor, everything that you need for KPIs, and we make decisions based upon that, right? So that's where, okay, let's look at who are the bottom 20% customers that we have, and if there's a story behind it, it's a contract, okay, that makes sense. But if this guy's just a pain in the ass, like the answer's no, right? And, we say no to where, Nate and I were talking. I said, I had to say no to a customer that was 15% of our revenue because they were going to get, part of their services done cheaper somewhere else. And I said, okay, well, you can take those services and you can no longer call us. We will no longer fix any of your equipment. Right. And it was a terrifying decision, but the result of that was they came back and we increased their labor rate $20 an hour, right? And, now they're a long time standing relationship to where, no was very powerful.
Grass isn't always greener.
Right.
Right. Good thought. Well, as we think about the last 5 minutes here, I've got a couple additional questions for you that may be on the lighter side. What does a great week in your shop look like, Nate?
I would say a great week is one that ends on a high note. I think this industry's tough. If in a week, if everybody can, get a couple belly laughs in a week, with camaraderie, poking fun at each other, being able to laugh at ourselves, finish some big jobs at the end of the week, have a chance, last hour or two of the day to clean, organize, reset for Monday. I would say that's a successful week.
Bill?
No one gets hurt. That's number one. Nothing gets broken. Employees, we really encourage everybody to kind of share their wins in their personal life. And, we do all hands meeting every week, and it gives everybody a chance to throw their personal wins out there. And we love hearing people nominating each other for our core values and execution, right? So when we get great feedback from the entire company of saying, oh man, Nate showed integrity because he said he was going to be there at 2 a.m. because it was going to snow, and sure as shit, he was there ready to go, right? Like, so that's a great week for us.
Yeah, when you think about that peer recognition, we have a similar structure here at Full Bay. It's about the peer recognition for the values that you create as leaders, you've got to recognize great work and great employees. But the peer recognition hits a little bit different. What you see typically is a better response and a better reward mechanism through peer recognition. So that's just another suggestion I tell people all the time. Create that peer recognition. Allow your team members, create budget dollars for peer recognition, because that goes a long way. The leaders are supposed to do that. That's part of what you do. You instill confidence in people. But when you get peer recognition, it's a little bit different. Peter?
Yeah, and I think another thing to add to that is don't be afraid to have some kind of a program that you really recognize and sometimes compensate for good behavior. One of the things we did was at the end of the year, I would take all the credit card points that we had, racked up from the company, and we'd go buy a bunch of gift cards. And I would give the gift cards to the shop managers and say, hey, if somebody does something above and beyond, recognize them. And the same thing was like what Bill's talking about, celebrate their wins. If you have a guy who hit 100% efficiency and bonused out, like I've been there, I've seen Bill do it. They literally get a giant check.
Yeah, we've got
and
cardboard checks this big.
It looks like the checks they give out at the lottery.
Happy Gilmore.
Yeah. Do stuff like that. Like, and that's the other thing too. When everybody can share the win, things aren't a secret anymore. Like it's not, nobody has animosity that guy got a bonus. And it's not like, this feeling in a shop where, well, he got a bonus, so I can't. You all can get a bonus. I used to tell people that. I said, I love writing these big checks.
Yeah. That's a great one. And it's tangible and people see it, right? Which obviously continues to breed that culture. Another question here. Nate, what fires are you putting out this week?
Oh gosh, I'll find out when I get back. And we just had that big snowstorm, so I can only imagine what my parking lot looks like. The breakdowns that happened. So we'll see. I mean, I'm here, but there's always going to be fires to put out, and these days it's usually in the form of, hey, maybe touch base with this customer. Haven't heard from him in a little while, or just do health checks with the employees and to the customers. I get all panicky, being the owner of the business when I'm out of the shop. For a week. Panicky is an overstatement, but I feel a little disconnected, so I'll have to plug back in, just kind of make sure everything's okay. And then my guys will make fun of me for it and tell me to relax, but hey, it is what it is, and they know to expect.
Yeah, you lead the right people, you can do things like this and not panic so much.
But it is a great exercise though, Nate.
What's that?
Leaving for a while.
Yes.
It's really good for an owner to leave.
Yeah.
Because then you get to see two things. You get to see, have you done what you've done? Is it working? But then also you give your employees a little bit of breather room to just go out and figure things out on their own.
Yeah. Yep. That's a good point. Good reminder for me.
Bill, what fires?
Literally a fire.
Oh boy.
About 20 minutes before we walked in here, I guess one of my techs put a fuse in for a CPC or SAM cabin chassis, and the truck caught on fire. So I got to deal with that, but it's, it's insurance or whatever, but that's a fire.
Oh, no pun intended there. I apologize for that. Yeah, and it's, when we think about leading people, when you think about we're all business owners, we're all operators, how do you lead people? It's about the behaviors that you employ, right? We all talked about this. It's not about the philosophy. Well, philosophy is great and you can strategize all you want. But what are the behaviors? Do you come to work and you're smiling and you greet people and you create that culture? You create programs, you empower leaders throughout the organization. We've had a lot of commentary in the chat here about these takeaways, about how we manage process, how we lead people, and I think that's really the thesis here. This Full Bay Shop Owners Roundtable is created to help you all to continue to educate on the business side of things. You all know how to which side of a screwdriver to use, as you mentioned earlier, Bill. You've been doing this for a long time, but hopefully we can help educate and we can share best practices and build a community around Full Bay, around you all as operators, as shop owners. We've got fantastic people that have been there and done that before. We've launched a community for you all to continue to share these ideas, jump into that community. Reach out to your Full Bay representative if you have questions around your shop, not just Full Bay, but around your shop. And we'll try to get you in touch with those that can help you, that have stubbed their toe, just like you might be doing today. But again, thank you all. Thanks for stepping away from the fires that are happening in our shops And obviously the storms that are going across the U.S. I hope everybody returns safe. I hope you're all happy, safe, and thank you for joining today. Appreciate it. Thanks, Peter.
Thank
Thanks,
you. This
Nate.
was awesome,
Thanks,
man.
Bill.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to like and subscribe. At Full Bay, we're here to help heavy-duty repair shops run smoother and stronger. Subscribe to join us for more stories and insights into everything heavy-duty diesel.